hour of the show, we would like to bring on a guest that knows Josh Allen very well. It's Jordan Palmer. He's a Quarterback Summit founder and trainer, former NFL quarterback and co-host of The Room podcast, XFL director of quarterback development. We're going to get into all of it with Jordan, but first I want to start here. You just had Josh Allen on your podcast. I hear it's a pretty long episode. We only get Josh Allen for about 20 minutes a week when he sits down to talk to the media. You got him for almost 2 hours, which is wild to think about. Of course, he has the time for you because you guys have built quite the connection in the offseason. You guys work together, and you have been a huge help in how Josh Allen has risen to stardom, really, going into his 5th season. So can you set us up with kind of the conversation that you guys talked about in that episode of the Room podcast?
Yeah. Well, first off, the Room is something I've been thinking about and wanting to do for a long time. The concept, it's Kyle Allen and I. It's one of Josh's best friends, and I've worked with Kyle. He's the backup quarterback for the Houston Texans. I've worked with him since he was like 15, 16 years old, and so we just have a really cool rapport. And we've just been saying for years, I'm like, I bet fans would want to hear what we talk about, because you think about the room in any quarterback building, that's the most important room in the building. If that room is dialed, college or pro, you got a chance. And if that room is not dialed, I don't care who your general manager is. I don't care who your defensive coordinator is. You don't have a chance. And so it's the most important room in the building, but it's also the most fascinating conversations in sports. I think it's some of the smartest guys who've been exposed to the most. And we wanted to take that. Kyle and I wanted to take that to everybody else. And so what we've created is a concept where every week we interview the best quarterback from the biggest matchup. And this is episode 4. We've had Desmond Ridder, Kenny Pickett, and JT Daniels. So it's college and pro on the first 3. Josh is joining us as we kick off the season tomorrow. I'm in Nashville right now, helping out some family, and then heading back tonight. I'll be at that game tomorrow in LA. And so this interview with Josh, it was awesome because we know a different side of Josh, and so to let that come out that doesn't come out in the media, and just kind of talk ball, talk sports, talk news, talk. There's a drinking game that every Bills Mafia member needs to understand that Josh has been doing since before he was ever a Bill, and there's just a lot of really fun nuggets in there, and I'm excited for all the Bills fans to be able to see this side of him that it's just it's tough for any quarterback to show up and show this side in any media interview. I don't care how well they know the interviewer. And so we've been able to do that 4 weeks in a row. And so for the Bills fans, this is a must watch for sure.
Yeah, interesting, because you're right. Most Bills fans, and even people like Maddie and I who work in the building with, you don't get a chance to hear the guy or spend an hour with him like you guys did for this podcast. It's going to be really must listen to for any Bills fan out there who's a fan of Josh Allen, which is probably everybody. Give us an idea of some of the nuggets and what people might sense from Josh about the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think we definitely dove into a little bit of how last year ended and the true emotions. I mean, I had him and a bunch of buddies over to watch the Super Bowl, so I was kind of with everybody right afterwards. They kind of all watched it from my house, and so but kind of dove into that. And one of the things that Steve, I work with a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of kids that have a lot of pressure on them right now. But I do think Josh is unique. I don't know if any quarterback in the NFL or college right now has higher expectations. And so we talked a little bit about that. Bryce Young has high expectations. Trevor Lawrence has high expectations. Patrick Mahomes has high expectations. Justin Fields, like, you can find a bunch of quarterbacks who have high expectations. I just don't know that anybody has higher ones from the people, from the fan base, from the NFL community, from Vegas. I mean, they're the favorites, right? And so then Josh. And so what's he doing with that? And he had a fascinating answer. Another thing, and this is not negative, but I this was one of the things I wanted to talk to him about, and kind of saved it for this conversation, was I referenced that I played in the NFL for a while. I backed up a lot of famous guys, and I've trained a lot of famous guys, and I've hung out and been friends with a lot of famous guys. And I use my brother as an example. When I was a backup quarterback for the Bengals, Carson was the #1 pick. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. They led a top 3 offense for felt like a decade. And so when fans saw my brother, they wanted a picture. They wanted an autograph. They wanted to talk for a second. That was kind of it. We pulled up some tweets. We didn't name names. But we pulled up some tweets from Bills Mafia, and it's not as simple as wanting a picture. It's not as simple as wanting an autograph. There's people who use terms like our Lord and Savior Josh Allen. There's people who it's different, and this kid's still 25. And so it was a really interesting discussion. Again, this is not a negative. It was a really fascinating discussion on what do you do with that, because there's not a lot of comps. You can't really go. I don't know if they do that in Kansas City. I don't know if they care like that. And the love and the investment that Bills Mafia has into this team and this organization is different. And so Josh has kind of dove into it, and it's fascinating to really see that he's perfectly suited to handle that and embrace that and actually appreciate that. And then there's a funny story about a drinking game that I just think Bills Mafia is just crazy if this doesn't get adopted starting tomorrow. That it's called Buffalo, and it started for Josh in college, way before he was a Bill. It's super ironic, and finally got a chance to talk about it. So there's a bunch of good fun nuggets in there, and then a little bit of ball too. We broke down some of the plays from last year's game versus Kansas City, and so I think fans will get a kick out of hearing him talk about, here's what we're trying to do on that play. You know what I mean? We hit the post over the top. Here's why. Here's how. In a way that doesn't ever come up.
Wow, I cannot wait to listen and watch that podcast. A great episode for all Bills fans to listen into. Jordan, I want to also talk about Josh's offseason with you. What did you guys focus on when we saw Josh in April and he came back to the facility for workouts and then OTAs into training camp? One of his big points that he was kind of harping on is, I want to work on throwing my receivers open. I think we can do a better job of that this season. So what did you guys focus on to get him ready for that 5th year in the NFL?
Well, I just think it was an extension of what he's been working on the last few years. Can't say that there was some specific thing or some breakthrough. The way he's been playing these last 2 years, you're really talking about subtle nuances. So it was, like you mentioned, throwing people open. It was a continuation of that. Probably more discussions around from a leadership perspective and how to deal with the expectations and what to do with that. And so it's as guys get older and as they have more success, it becomes less and less about specific mechanics, because those things he's really taken ownership of those things. I kind of feel like every quarterback's in their developmental phase, really up until their second contract. It's actually not just in high school. It's not just in college. I've worked with some guys on their first contract right now that are still adjusting things and changing things. It's not about getting paid. That's not why that second contract is the threshold in my mind. It's really just that year 3, year 4, year 5 is when you're starting to really take ownership of it. And really you need somebody, your quarterback coach on your team, whoever you work with in the offseason, to really keep an eye on it and see if there's something that comes up and kind of bring awareness to it, but not necessarily making mechanical changes. I think Josh is in complete control of his game. And for him, it's him and the other quarterbacks in the room and the quarterback, the folks that are weighing in on quarterback decisions on the staff. Now it's just about kind of channeling all that stuff moving forward as opposed to making changes in the offseason.
Well, you know Josh probably as well or better than most people do. You've got millions of fans out there, all of Bills fans out there, everybody in the media, in football, as you said, has expectations attached to the Bills and specifically Josh Allen. I want to ask you, what are your expectations? What do you think Josh is going to do this year? How do you think it's going to go? Obviously, he's not going to fall off a cliff statistically or any other way. What do you think the expectation should be realistically for Josh this year?
Well, I think it starts at the beginning of the year, and that slow start, Pittsburgh last year and all that. They got to start off fast and put themselves in a position to play these games in Buffalo at the end. So I know that it starts with that. Look, to win a Super Bowl, Bills fans know this better than I do, better than anybody else does. To win this thing at the end, you got to be playing at a certain level, and also ball's got to bounce your way. Coin toss has got to be the right way. It's a game of inches. You know what I mean? It literally is a game of inches. I mean, we see it every single week in college and pro, right? It bounces off the goalpost. It just goes off the guy's fingertips. So you gotta get lucky. It's got to be your time. And we saw it last year with the coin toss, and we've seen it play out a lot of different ways. But I think the keys are going to be starting fast right now, setting the setting themselves up for success later in the year. And then they've got to have that same recipe they had last year where they just really got hot. I might be wrong here, but I don't think Josh got touched the last 4 games, something crazy like that. So it wasn't just him playing at a certain level. It was the guys up front. It was the play calling was dialed in. And so I think they've got to be able to start hot. And then when they get later in the year, they've got to be able to, throughout the season, have relied on different parts of the game. They've got to be able to win a game running the ball if needed. They've got to be able to have the defense win a few games, by getting some stops. The ball's not going to be in Josh's hand at the end of every game. And so I think this season is a chance to lean and rely on these different units of the team and then put themselves in a position to make a run. But like I said at the end, ball's got to bounce your way. This has got to go in your favor. And the window is certainly open in Buffalo, and they just got to capitalize.
Every season brings on some sort of newness, and for Josh Allen, he's got some new weapons, and he's also got a new offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey. Now, this was his quarterback coach for the last few seasons, so not entirely new, but how do you think Josh Allen and Ken Dorsey can mesh together in what might be a revamped offense that we'll see? I'm sure it's going to look very familiar to what we've seen the last few seasons, but there's definitely going to be some new elements added.
I mean, this is one of the things I'm most excited about, period, this football, is to watch Ken Dorsey step into this play calling role. Brian Daboll doesn't have any bigger fans than me. And so I'm not going to say that's not a loss. I'm not going to say that's not a big deal. It is. But I was thinking about this the other day as I was talking to another Bills fan, and I don't have the list in front of me, but I'd be shocked if there was another play caller in the NFL who, when the bullets are flying and the lights are on and the moment's big, has more experience of playing big time quarterback than Ken Dorsey, right? Because Ken Dorsey, being kind of like a dorkier guy and being the face of the U at like peak the U. I mean, he was a Heisman finalist twice. I met him at the green room when my brother won it. Mm-hmm. And for him to have that personality and step into the U in Miami and just be the big man on campus and win the amount of big games that he played, like that to me, like play design on Tuesday and Wednesday, that's one thing. Installation and then getting guys to run the plays correctly and execute, that's another thing. But this helmet, the headset's going to cut off in 4 seconds, make a decision. Like, that's quarterback. Like that transfers over from quarterback. And you look at Byron Leftwich and you go, well, he's been a quarter. Okay, but he played at Marshall, and then did he play in that many big games in Jacksonville when they were really bad? And Mike Kafka's now calling plays, but like, I don't know where he played college. I don't really remember. I think Kevin O'Connell's probably going to be calling plays, but I played against him at San Diego State, and I don't think he ever started a game in the league. So I just think there's so much that no one's really talked about in Ken Dorsey's experience of playing big time pressure football with the ball in his hands at a super high level for a long sustained period of time that I think carries over. And then he's had the last few years sitting in a room with Brian Daboll watching how he approaches protections and how he approaches and attacks that coverage and play design and installation. So I just think it's set up perfectly for Ken Dorsey to be this next kind of brilliant football mind. And on top of that, you look around the guys in that huddle and it's a stable full of horses.
I know we all know here in Buffalo Bills, we've had you on the show before. You've been working with Josh. You also got the job with the XFL as a quarterback development director. That's a nice feather in your cap as well, but tell us about your role there and how that's going to affect you going forward with everything else you've got on the table.
Well, it's fun. I'm spending a lot of time with Doug Whaley and Russ Brandon, so 2 Buffalo guys. And, I think I needed this league. I needed a place that I could go and develop. I needed a place that I could play and get reps and get tape, but I also needed a place where I could just go get better. And so I think it was really forward thinking for them to include me in this. And I'm really going to come in and work with all 8 teams, the 2 to 3 quarterbacks on each team. And we're developing and curating the program that I've done for a lot of schools and a lot of players, which is a program. It's not drills. It's a program. And we're going to be able to work with guys starting in 2 weeks. So the quarterbacks will get sent out to me in California for about a week in September, October, November, and again in December. And so I'm going to come alongside these staffs and help serve them and really design a program that is going to allow these players, whether they're starting or not, to improve and get better, and for us to quantify it So we've got a lot of technology we use where I can literally say this guy spins it 10% better. He's got 20% more velocity, those types of things. And we'll be able to do that throughout the season, all the way up until May when the season concludes. So one, I needed this league just like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did. So I'm really connected to it. I mean, I got cut and I moved back in with my in-laws and borrowed my brother-in-law's truck in the off season. I mean, I've lived that life, and so I'm excited to come alongside these guys and help serve these young players.
Jordan, one final question from me as we approach kickoff Thursday night against the LA Rams at their house. You want to give us some final thoughts before we head into this one? What you're thinking about this matchup? Any predictions here?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough early in the season, but it's from a matchup perspective, this is going to be a really good litmus test because the individual players that the Rams have on defense between Jalen and Aaron Donald, and Bobby Wagner, some of these new pieces. But I would say this: I think the Bills present the most problems to a defense when you're looking at their offense, and so their ability to get the screen game going, take a shot deep, play action, run it. Josh to use his legs. I don't really think it's going to be smart for teams to pressure the Bills a lot this year because of how quickly Josh processes it and gets the ball out. And so, as many talented players as there are on the Rams defense, I just think the Bills offense poses too many problems early on, and I actually think the Bills are going to have a decisive victory that's going to really set the tone for the season.
Whew.
Well, Jordan, thanks. It's great seeing you again. Good luck with the podcast. Good luck with the XFL and your quarterback development. You got a lot of irons in the fire, but we're glad you're still working with our guy here, Josh. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Thanks for having me. Go Bills.